Hello everyone, my name is Imran Bashir and I'm a technical marketing engineer from Cisco Systems, and I'm here to talk about Cisco ISE 2.1 integration with Cisco Advanced Malware Protection, as it's called AMP for Endpoints. And the term we're using in this context is called Threat-Centric NAC. So the ability to actually apply network access control based on the threat information you're receiving from AMP for Endpoints. So just to call out a few things, as we already know that ISE can provide context based on who the user is, what kind of device they're using, when are they connected to the network, where, how, and how much is the compliant status for that endpoint. But with this new feature, you can actually receive more information for the endpoint in terms of what are the threats that are on these endpoints through AMP. Now we can also receive, as part of Threat-Centric NAC, information from ISE that can actually give us the vulnerability scores or the CVSS standards that could be for an endpoint in that case. Now there will be another video for ISE integration of ISE, which will go into much more details on how that works. But the focus of this presentation would be Cisco AMP for Endpoints and integration with ISE 2.1. So a few things to call out over here. First of all, we are getting more visibility for the endpoint through AMP. So under ISE, you will be able to see what are the compromise status of the endpoint and what are the things that are received by AMP for that endpoint. And only that, you'll be able to use that in the policy once that information is received. And that is kind of called the expanded control. So not only you're receiving visibility information, but you're actually have the ability to write a policy and take action on that information. And ultimately, it's a faster response system. Like once that information is received, you have the ability to go in and flip the status of that endpoint and perhaps give them limited access or have them access to a remediation server, if not at all. So with that said, we will go through some of the demonstrations. So what you see here is ISE 2.1 screen. I'm going to log into my ISE node over here. So the first thing I want to show is that how do you actually connect these systems. When I say system, pretty much the ability to receive information from AMP and other sources in ISE. So we added this new screens under administration called Threat-Centric NAC, and you can click on the vendors over there. Once you're on that screen, in this particular test bed, I have AMP added to the system, and I also have ISE added to the system to receive feeds about an endpoint. So let's look at how AMP is configured. Pretty much you'll see that we're actually ISE is talking to the public cloud. So based on your credentials, your instance of cloud could be connected to your ISE node, and that's how you'll be actually receiving information from the endpoint. So ultimately, your AMP for endpoint will collect information from the endpoints and it will send it to the cloud, and ISE will talk to the cloud to get information and kind of act on that information. So getting back to the policy is quite simple. First, you can see that we have a basic policy, which is a pre-can policy to give access to the endpoint based on the exception rule. In this case, if you're connecting in through AMP, based on your compromise status or not, you can give limited or full access to the endpoint. In this case, the policy exception will hit only when the endpoint is deemed as compromised, and when it's called as compromised, ISE will go and give it a limited access and perhaps put them into some kind of quarantine VLAN or quarantine access. So next step is that we'll actually go to the endpoint and see what's been happening with the endpoint. So I'm going to go and launch this machine and log in as employee 1. And we'll do something malicious on the endpoint. For example, in this case, I'm launching a browser, and we'll actually go in and kind of download something which is malicious. In this case, we're downloading this file. Now, as soon as the file starts downloading, AMP for the endpoint detects that it is a compromised endpoint, and that information, as we said earlier, will be sent to the AMP to the cloud service, and ISE will receive information from that cloud service. So getting back to ISE, if I look under endpoint, this is my endpoint. I'm going to go click under details, and we can see that that's how the information is sent from AMP towards your right side. And on the left side, you can see that it's marked as a painful event through AMP. Okay, so pretty much the information that's received is kind of converted into a STIX language. So if I click on the endpoint, first of all, a lot of information is collected for the endpoint in terms of attributes and authentication results. But under threats, you can see that information is sent or reported by AMP, and it's given in marked as incident, and you can see that what has been going with this endpoint into multiple reports. This completes the demonstration. Thank you for watching.